All right, welcome to another episode, another edition of the One Micronesia podcast. So far, so good. And today we have the honor of having him on the podcast. It's been a while since we've been wanting to just sit down because the podcast is all about good vibes, and that's what we want to bring out in this podcast. We talk to the brothers and sisters from the FAS who are here on Guam, who are really doing good out there, doing awesome stuff. So here with us in the studio we have Marce Johnson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Vic. Thanks for having me.
So, first things first, man. So, when we start things, we like to break it down. And so, because I've learned a little bit about you. Well, before we started the podcast, people out there might not really know about, who you are and what you do, how your journey to where you at right now. So, let's bring it back in time.
Okay. I guess just really simply, I was born in Palau, in a small hospital there. Actually, really small hospital. It's funny. Like the day I was born, there was no electricity, no running water. I think one of the two. But my mom's from Palau. My dad's from Boston. I grew up there for about a year. Moved here to Guam when I was 1. Grew up here. Left in 2000. I went to college in Minnesota, and I went to law school in Hawaii. I spent about 7 years out there.
Wow.
Before moving back to Guam in 2013, and I've been practicing as a lawyer out here since April 1, 2013. So it's practicing as a lawyer for about almost 11 years right now.
Wow, I have the sheet here where I'm like, I'm just gonna let him do it's his story, so I'll just let him tell his story. So Marce, thank you so much for jumping on here. Of course, talked about this podcast being a podcast, just about good vibes and stuff. You've been in a lot of things too. We had you on for a couple of our KUAM after parties.
Yeah.
So you did a lot of those two, being an analyst and stuff like that. So that's cool to see you and out there. I think I just wanted to really talk about how, because right now, of course, we started this podcast after all the issues and stuff came out, and it was just back to back that people were just like, oh, just fed up, and the questions were asked. We've all read some of the stories, some of the comments, and the Facebook stories that we put out here at KUAM. And I think one of the things that I really wanted to tackle right off the bat is because you're coming to us, you're from the law side of things. Because our previous podcast, we've had the people from the Manelu Micronesia Resource was here as well. We've had Sanctuary here as well. So I think we really want to talk about it from the law side, your perspective of what's happening. Anything you want to add?
It's kind of interesting to see because I'm a lawyer, but I mostly get involved with sort of business type things.
Oh, okay.
I mostly do a lot of insurance defense. I set up companies for people. The one thing I like to see is, especially because I wound up flipping through different newspapers and stuff like that, and new publications to see what businesses are started. One thing that I like seeing are basically when Micronesians come in, they want to start new businesses, they want to start new adventures on their own.
Okay.
Because when I started in Hawaii, what I really wound up doing a lot of was people suing people, whether it was medical malpractice, whether it was car accidents, or employees suing employers. So I was cleaning up a lot of stuff. The one thing I like seeing here is when people sort of start up new ventures and start kind of building things for themselves, because I really like to see people grow that stuff for themselves. And I've seen a lot of sort of recent Micronesian businesses get started, and it's really kind of a nice thing to see, I think. Because growing up here back in the 90s, you saw the different waves of Micronesians moving to Guam, and it was always kind of interesting to see. But especially with every sort of immigrant community, it takes time for those people to sort of integrate with the community. And on Guam, it's been a little disheartening because often the first interaction people have on Guam is with sort of law enforcement if they're immigrants, if they're Micronesian immigrants, for one thing. And I don't think that's the way it should be. But that's one of the things I like with Micronesian Resource Center and Manelu is they're trying to sort of reach out to people so that they have an idea when they come to Guam, different things that are available to them and different things that they can do to sort of integrate with the community, which is good because it's good for people to have options like that are available to them. And I was seeing a lot of that in Hawaii. A lot of my friends were Samoan, and Hawaii's had years and years of different streams of immigrants, though.
Right.
If it was the Japanese people at one point with the plantations, and people were complaining about them too. Then it was Filipinos coming in, and people were complaining about them, and Samoans, and then Micronesians as well too in Hawaii. And so it's sort of, with every new stream of people or wave of people that come in, you sort of see the same complaints. But it's heartening to see that after a while, people start sort of integrating in the community and getting an idea of of what's going on and integrating more with the community. And it's good to see that happen here, I think.
Now, like, I want to get back still, since we're still in that part of the thing where we talk about law and stuff. Um, what can you say about because I think what I'm trying to get to is the law side of things, where like FAS citizens here in Guam. I haven't really gone through to see in like within the compact, because to see if there's a part of it, because I know, like, and I think everybody who travels to either Guam or Hawaii or somewhere in the States, that when you go there, of course we're here for work, and we're for educational purposes as well, but at the same time to abide by the rules of the whichever place you go to. What can you say about things that are happening here on Guam, where people are saying, well, we've traveled here and we're just not following the rules and stuff like that? Like, we've seen a lot of that happen. What's your take on that?
Honestly, it's easy for people, I think, who grow up on a place as small as Guam too, to think it's really easy to go ahead and follow the rules. I mean, a lot of people that complain about that, I feel, grew up here in a place as small as Guam and haven't had the experience of moving to someplace else. And when I moved to Minnesota, it was very different doing things out there than it was from here. I remember when I turned 21, I tried to buy beer. I almost got arrested.
Whoa.
But it was because my Guam ID had a black strip on the back, and in Minnesota, if you have a fake ID, the people at the liquor store are going to get and try to turn you in because they get a reward for doing that.
Oh.
So me coming from Guam looked like the sort of weird outsider who had no idea what was going on. So I nearly got arrested because Reverend Tax decided to put a black strip on the back of my ID and didn't put anything onto it, though, so it looked like a fake ID. I had to learn a lot of things when I moved out to Minnesota about how I needed to do things, where I needed to get an ID. It was easy since it was college and everything was sort of self-contained. When I moved out to Hawaii, they have all sorts of rules and regulations out there when it comes to everything. I got pulled over once, and I had it was a used car that I bought, and they changed the muffler out and the intake on it. I didn't realize you need to get a whole separate permit for that in Hawaii when you're out there. But it's the same thing, moving from a place like Palau, moving from a place like Yap to Guam. Guam has a lot more built-up laws than any one of these other places out there. Guam is small compared to places like Hawaii and Minnesota, but compared to other places like, I don't know, like Chuuk, Yap, and Palau and stuff like that, there are a lot more rules that govern everybody's everyday lives that people aren't used to. People that grow up here too, I feel like, I can go to certain places and I can know people and I can get to the front of the line or help get certain things done easily, or because I know people. But I think people don't understand how difficult it can be for somebody who comes to Guam who may not speak English as easily as other people do, who may not have grown up around the types of rules that they need to follow in order to start things here. And it's really easy to start falling behind on things like that. I mean, even when I moved back to Guam, trying to get my power connected and doing all kinds of things, where it was a learning curve to it, because I was used to how things were done in Hawaii and Minnesota, and I wasn't used to how I had to do those things here. And I think it's easy for a lot of people on Guam to think, well, just go ahead and follow the rules. But I'm a lawyer, and it's hard for me to figure out what the rules are some of the times too. And it's disheartening too sometimes, because I'll go to certain government agencies and I say, well, the rules say this, but they're not necessarily following the rule either. They may do things to make it easier or for them, or they may have a different understanding of how the rule is, but it's really not as easy as that. Everybody, I don't necessarily believe that anybody's inherently evil inside too, though.
Right.
Everybody wants to go ahead and do what's best for themselves. People move to Guam because they seek opportunity, they seek work, they see a life that's different from the life that they had before. And I think it's something that really we should be helping people out with, rather than sort of looking down on them because they may come and they may not understand exactly how things are supposed to be done here.
And I think that's a good thing. And as I say, I talked to the Micronesia Resource Center Sanctuary, and some of the folks that I've had on the podcast has. If you look at what they're doing, it's really doing that. It's really turning to the communities that are coming from the islands that are new on Guam, and just like telling them, like, okay, this is how things are going now. This is and really helping them to put them out there, getting ready for what to expect as going into jobs or schools and stuff like that. So I think that was a good thing that they're doing out there. I also want, since your journey is an awesome one, talk about coming from Palau to Guam and then going to school, lived out there. You went through law school and stuff like that. For the younger generation who is listening right now, somebody who's wanted to study law, like, what would you tell them? What would you tell that young boy or that young girl who's looking into, like, okay, I want to be in a courtroom and stuff like that?
One thing I'd say is don't be disheartened by it. There Well, for one thing, there are a lot of Micronesian lawyers on Guam.
Mhm.
The district court judge, she's part Micronesian. Frances Technico Gatewood, she's part Pohnpeian. I have one of my friends in law school who practices on Guam is Josh Walsh. He's half Yapese. A guy I get confused with a lot in court, Darren Berman. He's half Pohnpeian. So I mean, and there's a Palauan lady working over at the AG's office right now too, and there's others too though. It's just everybody's just kind of working. They don't make a huge deal about it, the community. But the other thing I'd focus on though too is one thing you want to make sure of, and I do sort of like career days every once in a while at schools, and when I tell everybody, no matter what job they want to do, is read as much as you can and practice writing as much as you can, because those are the two things that really can help you in anything that you want to do. One of the things I did when I was in Hawaii when I first started working was I wound up looking at a lot of police reports and a lot of statements by people who are witnesses to things. And what I kind of like telling people is make sure that you know how to write like an adult to communicate what you feel and what you need to say, because that's the only way that really people are going to look at you and regard you in a certain way. If people look at what you write and they read that, they're not looking at you in the face when they're reading that. That's one of the things I like being an attorney from Guam is I can be at home in shorts and a t-shirt on my phone talking to people in Hong Kong, California. I was on the phone the other day with people from Milan and San Francisco. I think somebody in Hawaii too. They don't know what it looks like here. All they see is the product of my work. So you don't need to be ashamed of who you are, what you look like, anything like that. Though, so long as somebody sees what you're capable of writing, what you're capable of producing, what you're capable of doing as a person, that's really all that you should be concerned about, though. Like we were kind of joking about earlier because Andy brought in the Soul Glow video that I did.
Right.
But like when I was in law school, I used to have this big fro. And actually, when I shaved it and when I started working in Hawaii, my bosses kind of got a little angry at me, though, because like, we hired you with that fro.
We wanted you with a fro.
Yeah, I mean, don't be ashamed of who you are. I mean, really, it's what you're capable of doing, and especially when you invest in your mind and your ability to do things like write and read and understand things, though, that's really something that nobody else can really take away from you. And when somebody's looking at you from off island, not looking at where you came from, what you look like, who your parents are, anything of that stuff, though, it's what you're capable of writing and producing and showing to them that you're capable of doing. And so that's what I always tell people, is that that's one thing they should focus on, is their ability to create and to show things. Because nobody can judge you based on that. Nobody can judge you personally on yourself. They can judge you based on what you're capable of doing. It's hard for people to be prejudiced against you if they can't see you, I think.
So that pretty much, we're getting closer to the end here. Just anything before we close out, anything you want to just throw out there, about you, about the law side, some good things. Are you working on things, or because I know you're also helping out with other organizations on the island as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's one more thing I'd want to point out, though, is that when I did one career day I did it at Southern High School, one of the teachers said something that I thought was kind of interesting, which I disagreed with. She said that you shouldn't be a lawyer if you're local and you're from Guam. And I thought that was kind of a sad thing to say to students, because it's important that you have different voices in every sort of community on Guam, every sort of, whether it's the legal community, the engineering community. I mean, one of my cousins is an engineer. It's important that within this community that there be a mixture of voices, and that Micronesian voices be one of those voices in that community. As far as I know, I think there's a Palauan woman who works in the prosecutor's office of the courts, but it'd be good to have Micronesian prosecutors over there, because that way it's a Micronesian voice out there that's speaking for the people of Guam. It's good that there are people it's important that there are Micronesian voices in every community and every sort of profession that there are on Guam. So it's important for people to get their voices out. If they're a student on Guam, though, who's Micronesian, it's important that they not necessarily speak for their community, but that they do as well as they can, so that there's a voice out there that's representing people, though. So I'm happy to see that you're on the radio, though, too, because it's a Micronesian DJ too, though. So, but it's one of the things I've seen, because I left Guam for 13 years and I came back. I left Guam in 2000. I came back in 2013. It was really kind of nice to see that a lot of people that I knew growing up are getting involved in things like that, like you being a DJ. My friend Ken works over here. But it's good seeing that there, like I said, like when I grew up in the 90s here, like it was back when a lot of the people in the Chickees community were driving around in the back of pickup trucks on their way to work and everything. But that's changed. People are changing in the community. The generations of immigrants that are moving to Guam are changing, and people are setting up businesses and moving and getting ahead in their lives, though, and it's really good to see that. And
I have Clint Rigel and the,
Clint Rigel is the
legislature. So
yeah, I mean it's good. I mean it's a lot of people like to focus on the bad things that are happening. Though bad things are going to happen no matter what. And there's always bad eggs in every community, but it's important to focus on the progress that's being made, and the fact that people are getting out there and there are good things that are happening with the Micronesia community on Guam. Which I think this show is a good thing because it, like you're saying, it's important to keep sort of a good vibe out there and focus on the important things that are happening and focus on the good that people are doing in the community.
All right. Well, Marce, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. You just stopped by and pretty much taking up time of your busy lunch. So thank you for stopping by, man. And thank you for joining us here on another segment.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, guys. So that pretty much wraps up another episode, another segment of the One Micronesia podcast. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Victorious, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye. Later.